Hey, everybody, and welcome to Holler Hour with the Tennessee Holler. I'm Cassie, and I'm here with Sean Parker, Nashville's District 5 council member. And we're missing Justin today. He's been having some computer issues, so I'm going to be flying solo with Sean here. And yeah, we're going to be talking about, like how this potential new federal aid package might affect us here in Tennessee. We could use, quite frankly, all the help we can get since our state leadership is just extremely incompetent. But before we get into it, I just want to remind y'all that, we exist because of your support. And so if you like what we do here, head to our website at tandholler.com, shoot us a few bucks. The recurring donations really help us out, trying to help keep folks informed and to hold our leadership accountable. And make sure as well, if you haven't already, to follow all of our hollers around the state. We're growing because of you and because of your generous donations and just helping to keep our grassroots effort here afloat. So thank you all for watching. And yeah, Sean, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you all so much for inviting me today and having me here to chat. I'm no expert on federal policy, and I've done my best to keep up with the next aid package and how it's shaping up. But it seems to be very fluid and it seems to be changing constantly. So I'll do my best to speak on it.
Yeah, no, same here. We're definitely, I've been trying to keep up as well, but mainly just like I guess even more than just the specifics of the package. I know that you're very in tune with the needs of your constituents and what may or may not be in the package. I know what could really help them the most. So regardless of what's in the package, like there's lots of things that people need right now. So there are a few things that come to mind right away. I know that there's certain things that aren't yet being talked about that probably won't be in the bill, at least as of right now. The stimulus checks are like $600, like potentially for people around the country, the local government spending is not part of it. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we'll take it piece by piece. I mean, the best thing we can do for the economy when unemployment is as high as it is give people money.
Right.
That keeps people in their homes. It keeps them from defaulting on their mortgages. It allows them to buy groceries. It allows them to do, retail shopping, which is something that a lot of businesses count on happening at this time of year. And, there's some reports out saying that, retail shopping is way down. And it's like, that's what happens when people are out of work. That's what happens when people are, scraping by and struggling to pay for the bare essentials. They're not going to go buy a new PlayStation or a new sofa or whatever it is people buy at Christmas time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the best ways to stimulate the economy. If you want, as you said, if you want people to be spending money, they need to have money to do it with. And because so many are out of work, we're entering a new depression, essentially. That's the best way to do it. And we can bail out banks at the drop of a hat, but we can't bail out working people, it seems, which just seems to be a recurring issue. And obviously, this is something that Mitch McConnell wants a bill. A lot of this is riding on, his potential success in Georgia. He wants a Senate majority, and of course that would be disastrous for people. But that's what he wants, and so he has said out loud that he wants a bill. And so I think that gives Democrats at the federal level a lot of leverage, to get some of the things that they want. We don't have to continue this austerity doom loop, essentially. Because he's very blunt about it. He's telling his caucus that he needs this bill to retain power. So I don't know. I mean, I know that this is kind of a new thing, and it's I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but do you have any thoughts as to how that leverage could maybe be used, or things that your community, that your community members might need, and that could be part of this bill that we could push for?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more state and local aid in the bill, but when it comes to sort of the kitchen table issues for my constituents, and I know people all over Tennessee, it's money. I mean, people need money right now. People are struggling, through no fault of their own. This circumstance has put people out of work. Um, it's just money. It's money, plain and simple. You look at every other, sort of advanced Western style government that's been dealing with COVID. They're giving
Right.
people $1,500, $3,000 a month in order to survive this pandemic. We've gotten, we had the enhanced unemployment benefits, the super dole, as some of us call it, we had that for a couple of months. That was great for the people that got it. But for most of us, it's, we've gotten one $1,200 check, and that was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Average rent, I think, for a one bedroom in Nashville is $1,300 or $1,400. So they're talking about, one more cash payment of half of the prior one. They're talking about $600, not enough to pay 1 month's rent for a one bedroom apartment in the city of Nashville. I mean, that's not going to cut it for a lot of people. I mean, certainly any relief is better than nothing, but it's really, again, you made the point earlier, we can give trillions to banks. We can bail out these systems that, are hugely profitable normally. We can sort of keep those things afloat. We can put zero conditions on those. We bail out this industry, and we don't say, purchase an ownership stake in that industry. We just basically no strings attached, all the money that these industries needs, banking, airlines, etc. We give them everything they need to keep floating. But when it comes to working families, it's, oh, here's $1,200 6 months ago, and if the Senate can get their act together, maybe you'll get another 600.
Right.
That's just unacceptable.
Yeah. It's completely unacceptable. And I think, again, I just really want to drill home. I think that we've got, Democrats have more leverage than they've had since March on this issue. And so we need to see that type of, push, a really strong push to get, larger checks, to get more money for state and local governments, to the unemployment, that they want to increase unemployment. I think it's by like $300 a week, maybe. I honestly, I'd have to double check that, but they do want to increase unemployment benefits. However, that money will be taxed as it is right now. Like the way it's being negotiated right now is that money would be taxed. And so, a lot of people that rely on, like tax credits, like for health insurance, nutrition benefits, all that stuff, when they get their rebates or they get their tax money back, because of, working people who don't make very much money get money back from the government, after April when they pay their taxes. And so, and if that money is going to be taxed, and, they rely on that money, getting that money back for other, credits and services, then, we're going to be approaching not only, we've got evictions, as you said, this money that's coming out is not nearly enough to cover the people that are being evicted right now and will continue to be because of the situation that we're in. But we're also going to be approaching an unemployment like tax bomb, essentially, in April because of this.
And in addition, there's a structural issue with administering aid through unemployment, because
Right.
that money goes to states, and then states administer it. And we've heard over and over and over again how poorly Tennessee's unemployment system has worked this year. It's faced sort of a stress test this year, and it has failed. I still get emails from constituents who say, "Hey, I've been trying to get my unemployment since April or May, and can you help me?" And I usually refer them to their state rep, because they have a more direct line to that. But the point is, universal direct payments from the federal government directly to citizens is the most efficient, most effective way to keep people in their homes, to keep people fed, and stimulate the economy. And it's plain and simple. People need money right now, and putting it through, trusting states who have these underinvested social safety nets like Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a state match needed for Tennesseans to get that money, I don't know that the the Tennessean government will match it. It leaves too many questions. It leaves too many opportunities for people to fall through the cracks when you administer things that way. And that's why direct, universal cash payments are the best way.
I think that's such a good point. I mean, and that's where, some of these bills, and it depends on, as you said, like how various states administer this stuff. So some states, people will receive more of the benefits than others. And obviously Tennessee is one of those where we've got like $1 billion rainy day fund that we're just sitting on. So I don't trust our leadership to give the full, as the maximum amount of benefits to the people as possible. So as you said, these direct cash payments that can't be, or, wired payments, whatever, that can't be taxed is the best way to do this, because, the $600, potential $600, check that we may be getting is not going to be taxed. And that's good. It's way too low, but it's good that it's not going to be taxed. But it's not good that these extra unemployment benefits may be taxed. And like, as it stands right now, they will be. And yeah, it just leaves way too many holes for the way that states administer all of this, for money to slip through the cracks and not go to working people that need it right now. I wanted to ask, it really is. You're so right. It's like a simple answer as to what people need. And I just wanted to relate it back to something that you said about how other countries have handled this. I think Japan has, I can't remember the exact amount, but they're getting, I think it's like $2,000, like the equivalent. It's something like that in Japan. And I think it's, if it's every month, something like that, and there are other countries where it's around that. It's maybe $1,500, or matching salaries, or matching or doing 80% or 90% of people's salaries up to a certain amount. And I just wanted to ask, why do you think that is? I mean, there's a whole class analysis structure and how all of, money relates to politics that we could go into. And it's a really big question, but, just in as simple of terms as possible, like some of the major points, why do you think there's such a discrepancy between the way that the US handles crises like this and the way that other modern industrialized nations handle this, or not even necessarily industrialized, just other nations handle this?
Yeah. I mean, you look at where, who's doing well right now, right? You look at Amazon with, unprecedented profits. You look at these enormous corporations. I mean, our tax structure is set up to incentivize these companies. I think that in a sane world, you would look at how people are struggling right now. You would look at, the backlog of evictions around the corner, and you would look at Amazon, et cetera, in the other corner, and say, look, we're going to do a one-time tax. We're going to do something to say, like, this doesn't make any sense. Something has broken down with the system here, and this distribution of resources is not sensible. Now, I think that I'm not sure how other countries are managing to, support their citizens the way they are. I think that it deficit spending with a future tax plan to support it. There's a number of ways that it can be done, but it's almost just not even in the vocabulary of the United States government to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It never really has been. I mean, if you look back at the 2008 recession,
right.
We had this very top-heavy federal response that said, well, most important thing in the world is that Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns get back on their feet, and then meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of families across the country were, underwater on their mortgages, and they had been sort of duped into predatory mortgages that, the rates shot up at some point in the mortgage's lifetime, and just, so many families just lost their shirt in that situation. But look who's all right: Bank of America, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers. They all came out just fine because that's who the bailout was for.
Right.
And I think that those, whatever dynamic caused that is still what's the dominant dynamic in American politics, which is regulatory capture. I mean, that is that, the industries which, government is there to regulate, have a very strong voice in government. And I don't think we put cabinet appointees on this agenda for today, but
we can get into that.
I don't know enough specifics to, I stay so focused on Davidson County and on my district that, before I was a council member, I would follow all this stuff and I would read all the national reporting and I would stay super up with it. But it's just, I can't follow in depth two worlds, and that's what it feels like.
Right.
One thing, you were talking about state and local aid. That's something that I have a little bit of, firsthand knowledge with. This year. I mean, the Metro Council just voted on Tuesday. That is the Nashville Council voted on Tuesday to essentially roll over. So initially, when the CARES funding came to localities, it was very, very tightly restricted. You could only use X, Y, and Z ways, and you had to do that by December 30th. In October, they relaxed some of those provisions in a way that allowed us to essentially apply CARES funding to some expenses that were previously budgeted in the budget, but that were, we ended up, say, our health department staffers. Obviously, those people have been working around the clock, overtime, responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So we were able to apply some of the CARES funding to that, and that allowed us to basically roll over about $30 million of Nashville's $121 million of CARES funding that we received. And, I was apprehensive about that. I didn't, I thought maybe there's more immediate need in the community for this. A lot of people have expressed that, and I was right there with you, and I'm super sympathetic to it. But you look now, and the federal government's talking about passing an aid package that has zero for local government, has nothing for local. It was a prudent decision, and I'm glad that we did it. I mean, when we're running off of one round of stimulus for now, what's it been, 8 months since CARES passed? And that could be all we get until February, March. We don't know. It could be all we get, period. We lose these 2 Senate seats in Georgia, and who knows if and when there'll be another round of stimulus for individuals, state, local, for anything. There's so much uncertainty that, I think that a lot of local governments have had to make difficult but prudent decisions in order to keep their COVID responses running. So, we have to pay for testing. We don't have a comprehensive approach. We don't have any meaningful way that we can ask people to stay home right now with no financial support. Stay home, lose your job, don't pay your mortgage, don't pay your rent. For small businesses, we say close down. You still have rent to pay. You still have employees to pay. We don't have any way. So testing is sort of a backstop, not even mitigation effort, but it allows people to at least know if they're sick. And testing is very expensive. And if we had, in order for us to be able to support our testing program, Nashville's testing program, we had to roll that CARES money over because we didn't know if there was any more coming. And now it looks like there is a big fat goose egg coming for local governments. So I'm glad that we did.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point about just having to, just make these really tough decisions. And, a lot of I see even just friends of mine, I don't know. And I think it's in good faith, but just talking about people, how they shouldn't be going out, shouldn't be doing these things. And it's like, so many working people have to be doing this. And all of that health, that's why the people that are experiencing the worst health, outcomes right now are those, working people, which disproportionately affects, people of color, et cetera, but it's all on the onus of that. And the brunt of it is going on to working people, and the brunt of the financial aspect of that is also going on to working people. But businesses, we live in a society that is contingent on capital. And so it's like, if you're not making that money, then you're not able to survive. And I think that it's so important to just connect those two things that, and we talk about this on the Holler all the time about how, health and the economy are inextricably attached. Like those two things needs to be a holistic approach into how, as to how we take care of this so that people are not, and of course it's been botched right now. And so we're kind of in a really tricky situation. But going back to what you said a little bit before about just like, why we're in this situation, just kind of like as a nation in terms of our response. And it really is, it's just like the water we swim in, this austerity water that we swim in. And, the bailout, as you said, in 2008, it was a similar approach, a top heavy approach where the banks got bailed out, big industry, these, the folks at the top got bailed out, working people didn't. And I just wonder, and it's a really difficult question, but just how we can kind of like we almost need like a cultural realignment in terms of how we fix that sort of thing. Because it really is just like, that's where the goalposts are. And I think they're slowly shifting, but it needs to be talked about on kind of a large, both macro and micro level. Otherwise it's never going to change, and people aren't going to see that, oh, hey, this is how another nation responded. I guess we could maybe do that here too. Like, why can't we have that as well? And it's just too bad because, leadership here, I mean, Governor Lee, it seems like his response is almost no response. He can't do a statewide mask mandate. He shifts everything to local and county officials. Yeah, go ahead. What do you have thoughts on that?
You talk about hard choices.
Yeah.
I can't decide who to give these 975 vaccines to, so I'm going to put them in a refrigerator. I mean,
and they have a shelf life.
It's we in government, you make impossible choices. You have to. There's limited resources, and you have to make impossible choices, and you don't get everything you want. But what you don't do is just sort of curl up in a ball and just leave it.
And that's what he's done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate. I mean, the statewide mask mandate, this is literally the least intrusive, least disruptive mitigation strategy that we have. And it's just enormously disappointing that we can't just say as a state, yes, we're all going to do this for a stretch of time. I know that there's skeptics and whatnot. The mask skeptics, they remind me of the people who say that, oh, wearing a bicycle helmet actually makes you less safe because people see you in the car and then they think, oh, it's not a big deal if I hit them, or you feel safer, so you do more dangerous stuff. Look,
or a seatbelt.
I was a bike messenger for most of my 20s. I've cracked my noggin on the pavement several times, and I am like alive, or I can attribute a number of remaining IQ points at this point to helmets. I can tell you they work. I was on a bike full time for, several years. I cracked several helmets. I can just tell you they work. Now, you might be able to point to a study from, 8 years ago from some obscure university where they said, oh, actually, like, here's why helmets might be less safe for some reason. I don't care.
Yeah.
My head has cracked on the pavement enough times. Helmet saved me. Just wear a helmet while you're biking. Like, I don't care what folks say. I don't care who analyzes it, who comes up with talking points. Like, it just works. I mean, it's a respiratory infection,
exactly. Like it, and it is tougher because it's like, it's not something that's as visual maybe as like the experience that you get. Like, oh, I cracked the helmet. Like, that could have been my head. You don't get that same visual necessarily, but I don't know. There's so many issues that comes back to where it's like, what is the scientific consensus on this? Obviously, it's still very new. Like, but there's good data out there, and if you look at the aggregate of what's coming out, of course, mask mandates help. Like, there's so much research that's been done on this already, and ways to compare. Comparing places with and without mask mandates, that the results are very clear that they work. And and it's frustrating because that information is there. It's not difficult to understand, but and of course, do I think that people who blatantly disregard that information are not being smart? Of course, but my blame is more so, at least for that, on leadership, and primarily GOP leadership. Of course, Trump down. And I'm not saying that there aren't some outliers out there, some Republicans who are advocating mask wearing and have mandated. There's some county mayors here in Tennessee who are Republicans who've done mask mandates. So I'm not saying that it's everybody, but if we had unified leadership on this, we wouldn't have this problem. Like there would maybe be a few fringe people who are like, oh, I'm being controlled. Do you have to wear a shirt inside a building? No shirt, no shoes, no service. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. But you're always going to have a few of those folks. But for the most part, I just doubt that we would be in this problem. If we had a unified front on this issue.
I think that something we can anticipate in any future crisis, I mean, for the foreseeable future, with America so culturally and politically polarized, it's going to fall along these lines. I mean, you saw it early on in this pandemic when, GOP state legislators in this state rushed to pass resolutions decrying this as a media hoax, and it was all overblown and whatnot. And I mean, signatories to that resolution have been airlifted to Nashville and are currently on ventilators.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I'm sorry. It's difficult, but I mean, we're going to have to just be strategic in the future around crises and say that, look, it's going to polarize like this.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know how you would have, maybe it's blue masks work better than red masks, and red masks work better than blue masks. I don't know how you capture that energy and that tendency of the polarization in a situation like this, but we have to figure out a better way, because it can't be that every single challenge and every single crisis that we face in the coming decades just falls along these lines.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. We're going to fail to meet challenges. We're going to fail to address issues if things keep falling along these lines.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that points to a really big question in terms of how just to manage there's going to be, at least in my opinion, I think there's going to be a breaking point eventually. And so, doing those who are doing outside organizing, I think that's going to really come into play, later and be really important, just for people that feel disenfranchised in general, just from the political system. And so that's, that's definitely a big question. But I agree. I mean, even just in the short term, how do you deal with that tension? How do you operate within that tension as it exists right now? And it's something that we definitely didn't predict. And it was, I don't know. It's definitely a tough situation. While I have you here, what are some of the things that you think that you talked earlier about how, Nashville has made some prudent decisions in terms of rolling over funding. What are some of the things that you think that Nashville has done, city council, mayor, et cetera, has done right and wrong? What did y'all do well? What could have maybe have been done better, at least so far, in this response, both economically and health-wise, with COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think that issuing a mask mandate early on was smart. I mean, I think that the initial response, lockdown and sort of the phase one reality, where there was very little non-essential activity happening, was correct. And at that point, if you remember, we had PPP for small business, we had $1,200 checks, we had the Super Dole. We could effectively respond without wrecking our economy at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, and I think it was super effective at the time. But as we sort of emerged from that period, there was less support for business. There was no support for individual workers and families. and our neighboring counties were doing very, very little in terms of COVID mitigation. And, we don't have the logistical capacity or the legal authority to close our county borders. Not that I even think that would be a good idea, but it's just frankly impossible. And so we can deviate from our neighbors, but the more we deviate from them, the less effective it becomes, because these are porous borders. I mean, people work across county lines. My family's in Rutherford County. People are going to travel and intermingle across county lines. And so if one county says, "Oh, we've got the best plan in the world," it doesn't matter, because there's 5, 6, 7 counties surrounding you that think this is not something that needs to be addressed. So I think that's one of the big things that the Nashville is balancing in its response is, the return on investment is not the right word, but the degree of mitigation that you actually get if you go so far from what neighboring counties are doing. I think there's a trade-off there that has to be considered. And the other big thing is just, we can't, without support for businesses and without support for individuals, again, people have to pay their rent, people have to put it on the table, and you can't say, hey, everybody has to stay home. And also, your mortgage is going to go into pre-foreclosure, and your landlord's going to evict you, and your job is going to, the place you work at is going to fail and never open up again. I mean, that's just not something we can do. So I mean, I have my differences with the administration's response and with the health department's response, but I mean, I don't envy their position, and that they've been taking a measured approach, and doing as well with the circumstances they're delivered as I think it's reasonable. I can't find any just glaring, and I mean, like everybody else, you wake up every morning and we've got 1,200 new cases in Davidson County, and it's like, should bars be open right now? I don't know. But I mean, it's like, what are the trade-offs and the alternatives? One of the things that we saw quite a bit of this a few months ago was, with bars closed, there was an increase in house parties at Airbnbs and whatnot. So it's almost like, if there's people that they're just gonna go out, right? Yeah. And absent a full lockdown with direct payments and small business support, that's just the reality. Is that some people are going to go out, and is it better for them to go to a bar that has decent guidelines and safety measures, or people to just start throwing just unlimited Airbnb parties with zero guidelines and zero oversight and whatnot? I don't know. I mean, it seems like the bars that are really making an effort, the restaurants that are really making an effort to keep people safe, and following proper protocol. I mean, I just, that's probably a better environment for people to be congregating in right now. I'm personally, I have visited, not recently, but East Nashville Beer Works here in my neighborhood. They've got a lot of outdoor seating, and that's about as comfortable as I've been going to bars personally. But I forgot the prompt, and I'm able to just talk and talk and talk. So feel free to interrupt me. And
no, that was perfect. I mean, that's exactly what I want to hear, is how it's affected your community, essentially. And I'm kind of in a similar boat with what I'm comfortable doing. I'll go to distance outdoor frothy monkey, occasionally. I haven't really done that recently just because the caseload is so high. But yeah, I mean, I think that just sums all of this up really well, that you can't have a good economic response without a good health response. You can't have a good health response without a good economic response. They're the same. And so, people are doing what they have to do economically right now. And if you have a business that's contingent on people coming in and, to a restaurant, a bar, or whatever, something like that, a store, you have to survive essentially, and you need money to do that. And so, yeah. And so I think that that's a good way to sum everything up, is that with the situation that we're in right now, these tough calls have had to be made, and hopefully in the future we can push for a more holistic, response with this sort of thing. But we definitely have a lot of work to do to get there. Any other final parting thoughts as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that all of us, organizers, activists, people who are in government, we should look for opportunities to not only weather the storm that we're in now, but build a more resilient community and society. I think that there are opportunities to do that, and I hope that we're all looking for those, because this won't be the last crisis we face, and I just hope that we're learning some lessons and adapting from this, and we're going to be stronger after it.
Yeah, totally agree. There's a lot that we can learn from it, and I hope that we learn the right lessons. And well, thank you so much for hopping on with us again today. It was great to talk with you, Sean, and thanks again for your leadership in Nashville. And to all you watching, just stay safe and do whatever you can to support local businesses, as safely as possible, and we can ride through this together as best we can. So thanks again, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.